Hi, and I'm just going to say hello again and introduce this second CCRI community radio program. We've already started, but I forgot to press record because we're still learning how to do it. And so today we have just been listening to a poem by Tom Sastry that Jonathan has read us, and from a book called A Man's House Catches Fire. It's got some beautiful imagery. And for the bulk of the remainder of our time, we're going to be speaking with Tatiana Kemi, who's joining us from Aalborg University today. So Tatiana, welcome.
Thank you.
I wonder how it's going over there. Here we are.
It's Aalborg University at home. So you see, we have wonderful frames at Aalborg University.
Yeah, so it would be wonderful if that was your actual office. We always think it's, you know, very nice in Denmark, but that really is nice, comfortable. So you're comfortable at home?
Yes, getting a little bit of cabin fever. All the family and everybody here, we like each other, but now it's enough. we would like to, go to the office and travel and do stuff.
For sure, it feels like it's been a long time now, and some time still to go in this quiet pandemic life that we're adapting to. So I think it's very interesting that it's been going long enough for you to have published a paper about it. And that paper takes us back to the early days and the initial feelings of last spring and of being confronted with this situation. You're a lecturer as well as a researcher and writer, and your work's about creative, cultural, and why don't you introduce what you do?
Yes. Well, the department I'm associated at, it's called Culture and Learning, Department of Culture and Learning within the humanities. And my research field is creativity, especially the artist's perspective, and artistic learning processes. So everything in between the arts and pedagogy, learning, education, all the partnerships and alliances, it's something that is very interesting for me. And this is also what I teach, especially at the master program, which in Denmark we call master a sort of 2 years professional development for practitioners, and the one I spend more hours with, it's a master program called Creative Learning Processes, and it's teachers, kindergarten teachers, nurses, HR consultants, all sort of practitioners who have interest and work with creativity, also artists and people from cultural institutions. So not only they are open to learning about creativity in a creative way, but they also demand it. They expect it and demand it. And we do it. We take our own medicine and we teach creativity. And when I say we teach creatively, I intend it in a very relational and embodied way, and arts, and very often arts-based. So the way we teach in classes involves very much actors training, embodied exercises, visualizing with different tools, music, rhythm exercises, and dramatizations, yeah,
Mm.
image theater, all sort of embodied exercises.
And from what I understood, you part of the struggle of moving onto the screen was how to respond iteratively within the process and to develop as you go along with the students.
Absolutely, especially for this master program, because I teach also at the real master, what we internationally call master, and it's not necessarily students that have chosen to study creativity, but I let them, and I use creative tools as well, and it's accepted. It's many of them are very excited, but not in the same massive way as in the Master of Creative Learning Processes. So my problem was exactly how to choose different levels of participation, of involvement for different target groups in the different educational programs that could still use and involve the body and embodied conversations. And that's why my first response was, it's impossible. I can't do it.
Yes,
it's impossible. Yeah.
So how to use the body through a screen, and also how to teach perhaps some students who might be quite resistant to what you mean by creativity, and who who need to experience it really to understand what you're talking about.
Yeah. Exactly. And also the extra obstruction was that the full lockdown in Denmark came 2 days before my teaching rush, the rush hour of teaching. Never as this year have been very good in clustering all my teaching hours in the same period. And for 10-15 days, I had a huge amount of teaching hours in the classroom. And this happened. So from literally from one day to the other, I had to react. I come from theater studies and theater training. So the impulse and response was to react, to do something. And as I tell the story, it was very frustrating because in pedagogy, what I try to teach and advocate for is action and reflection, not blind action, not pure reflection, but of course a mixture and a good synergy of the two. And this didn't happen. I just had to work hard and sort out creatively what to do, because my own creativity tricked me into doing it. My first response was, it's impossible, and my creative devil asked, is it? And of course I started thinking about solutions that are not and can never be substitution to the body, to bodies in the room together. So
you had to get through and somehow deliver some teaching, and it sounds like what you produced, the paradox was the students loved it.
They were so excited. We never had so more beautiful responses, also
Okay.
spontaneous responses from the students, not only the course evaluation, the formal course evaluation, but just response, an email, or just a chat with students. They were very excited, very grateful. And then actually, and this is also something I'm writing at the moment, the formal evaluations, they revealed a more nuanced picture.
Okay.
First of all, the students took the formal evaluations very seriously. It's such a boring matter. It's the most boring thing to do for a student. I know, I admitted it, to fill in these evaluations, but they did it en masse. They just, a lot of them, they just wanted to be helpful and just express their frustrations, their satisfaction, and also give their ideas, because most of them, they are educators themselves.
Right.
So they were sitting with the same challenges that we had. So
I just want to, I mean, I thought I felt that you were quite hard on yourself because you made the point. I think what you ended up doing was giving them a package that they could go away with and run, rather than something that you developed with them in it,
yeah,
as you went
yeah,
along, and you've painted this as a bit of a kind of a failure on your,
yeah,
and yet I
yeah,
think you were all, I thought it was interesting because you came to it as a, you know, in that moment of crisis, this was your creative response. And I mean, I felt, yes, you tightened perhaps the boundaries and gave some guidance. But I wonder if, in fact, that was what people needed in that moment, because you were all in this situation of early lockdown,
yeah,
pandemic, very heightened anxiety,
yeah,
and actually some real clarity and guidance of, you know, I know what you should do this,
yeah,
was perhaps really appropriate in that moment.
yeah.
Um,
Absolutely. Yeah, but it's well, the thing is complex, and what I wanted to draw, the picture I wanted to draw in the paper, is the complexity
yeah,
of, you know, the feeling of failure and the wonder in having these good responses, and looking back and thinking, okay, perhaps it's not that bad. And also my responses, what I didn't want to compromise. So either we were going to just deliver asynchronous teaching with videos or voiceover PowerPoints, and as we partly did, or the synchronous teaching, you know, being on Zoom with the students live. If I had to do it, I wanted to involve the body, and this was the most creative challenge I had, and it somehow it succeeded. I didn't know we could do it, but we did a collaborative collage, and we documented it, and everything was very spontaneous. It was not improvised, because I had a clear idea where we were going. We had an online museum visit with exercises. So everything was very well schemed. Um, and I was surprised by the outcomes, that actually bodies can be so strong and so needing of each other, that in somehow with some artistic tools they can break the 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 square prisons where we are. and we were reaching out, physically reaching out to each other. And my students, they were witnessing, they were with each other in the small rooms doing art in the same room, but not collaboratively, but being the same room with each other, feeling each other's presence in the room while they were doing their individual collage, for instance. And then we brought them all together. So we found many different ways of talking through the body and through artistic media with each other. And this is what I think it's interesting, because there's a lot of digital pedagogy that addresses the creativity and a lot of development involving play and playfulness and games. But this is not what I am interested in. The creativity on screen that I'm interested in challenges the digital, doesn't go along with the digital. It's trying to break the screen and rethink it.
Are you talking about the affective sense of being present with
amongst the others, yeah,
one another,
yeah,
and that sense of being alongside and undergoing,
yeah, which is something, for instance, that I found again in the CCRI collaborative writing, that together with the micromassive collaborative writing in 21 days helped me coping with the chaos of this situation. So when I was there for the first day, we were writing with each other and being together in the room with each other, not collaboratively, but we were there for each other. So and it was a beautiful experience.
I'm glad you mentioned, because you mentioned both of them in the paper, and I was also in both of those spaces and found it very grounding to just to witness the reality of other people around the world having the same experience, and somehow made it easier to process what was happening.
But truly, I'm not overstating these, saying that I think these two writing experiences really kept me sane in my head through this chaos, and also the regularity, especially the regularity of the 21 days, every day one prompt. It was very challenging also to be there, to cope with the pace, the very fast pace. And as a consequence, then I started a writing laboratory with a co-author in order to have something to hold on to effectively, bodily, relationally, and also cognitively thinking together through this isolation period. So the writing lab, it's something that's really stuck on my practices.
Yeah, and I guess that is a practice that's been possible to carry on with through this pandemic, is writing and writing together or alongside or to each other. I think probably a lot of us in this group have found that to be a helpful response and an orienting response as we did process our presence.
I also tried to be in groups, theater groups that couldn't meet physically. So we started doing theater training on screen, and it's crazy, but we did it. and it's the ways that can break the flatness of the screen that I think are more interesting for me. And the screen, as I write, and stealing my artist in residence way of putting it, the screen and the digital conversations, there are a good raft, but they cannot be the ship. They can't be the boat in my practice.
Yes, not for not forever. So it was something that was a temporary solution. That's what you were saying. So I mean, I'm really interested in this idea of breaking the flatness of the screen. I wonder what you did in particularly with your in the drama setting up.
Yes.
Yeah, can you tell us?
Oh yeah, there are many exercises that can be done, but the challenge is that you can see very little. So someone is also standing up and showing some practices. So one exercise could be to show the physical, just 7 seconds of the physical practice that one is doing every day. And so you can choose 7 seconds to show, and it could be something, you know, like this, and you can ask participants to do the same, or voice exercises. We were dancing, and we were doing attention exercises, and sometimes something magical even in screen work happens. For instance, if someone is doing a movement that associates with someone else's movement, and you can see that someone is really having a bodily conversation, and this is breaking the for me, it's breaking the flatness and also the squareness of where we are.
I want to, so if I mirror you, I think I get a little bit closer to feeling what it's like in your body and in your experience, and your level of animation right now. And I think that's really interesting as an invitation to people to move and copy each other. Jonathan's just posted, feel free to be posting questions. That's to our audience who are here. If you have questions coming up, do just post them and we'll get to them. That's what we're planning. So feel free. So you might do this, or you might make a sound, or
sounds, for instance, the hand dance, for instance, where everybody, you can try it like this.
Try it too. Oh, and it makes it
every kind of hand.
Well, the perspective goes crazy on the screen, doesn't it? We've all got enormous hands. We're all wiggling our fingers at our cameras, and we've got crazy, enormous hands. Because I use that as well. I'm quite conscious of it with in therapy, because we can come much closer to our clients if we lean forward, or we can give them more space. And sometimes I find I have clients who are kind of just down in the corner of the screen, and sometimes, you know, they're often looking down at me, if you like, which it does strange things that would never happen in the room, but we can use it. Do people bring objects or things to play, or?
Well, we do this in teaching. I don't think I did it with this course, but with colleagues in collaborative writing, in a group of co-writers, where we were bringing objects, and we were starting by telling in which way the object associated with the theme we were talking about, in order to have a more narrative and material start on our conversation. And of course, the objects, the artifacts, they started getting into our conversations and you always keep relating back to the objects as a conversation body. Of course,
Okay.
it's there, very much present.
Yeah.
And some of them are more stronger than others.
So you might, yeah, so you characterize objects or use them in your narratives. And this reminds me of your use of fiction, that you use fiction within your teaching. Can you say a bit more about how you play with that?
Well, I use very much fiction and dramaturgy from theater and drama. And one exercise that the students loved, it's a dramatization of some teaching theories, and it's very simple. Freire is hinting at something of this kind, but I present them with a murder. I tell them something dreadful happened. There's been a murder, and someone killed learning, and you are the experts, investigators that I could collect amongst the best, and you need to help me finding the murder. And I start using the fictive language. So I get into a fiction. I build a ritual passage into another dimension where they are investigators, and I keep the fiction in my language, and I keep it very consistently also when I present them with the educational materials. So these are not pictures of schools or learning environments, but they're pictures of murder. Places.
Murder scenes.
Murder scenes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the articles they're going to read, there are reports from investigators, these and such. So I keep the fiction in my storytelling to them, and they love it, and I ask them to produce a police report. That's I present them with a model that's a blueprint from the Danish police that I find online, and they use the same structure and language, and of course they actually reflect very intelligently on very deep matters, even though the form is very playful and dramaturgical, and the police reports are very short. So in this one page, they can actually be more clever than they can do in 30 pages of exam essay.
So it really gets them to focus.
Yes.
Right in on.
Yeah.
And this dreadful question: who killed learning?
Learning. Yeah.
Is learning really dead? And yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it is. It's really dead. And so the question is, who did it? What was? Why? And what can you do to avoid these kind of murders? Yeah, in the future.
Okay.
To prevent. Yeah.
Yeah. So. I love this. I want to kind of come back out of the work and into your journey, and back to this question of how you oriented yourself. And you talk a lot about your dog and the relationship with your dog who kind of took you for walks in the woods.
He's sleeping now,
not walk time yet. And I
Yes,
was,
that, yeah. Is there anything special that you were
well,
curious about?
I think it was your use of, because Donna Haraway has talked about her dog, and some of us will have seen her film and how she plays with her dog, and the use of the non-human. So I liked how you brought it in, and I'd wondered if, again, it felt like bringing perhaps the experience of having read or seen Haraway into action here in your life, that you started kind of being within the experience. I don't know if you want to say more about how the
Yes,
dog
yes.
helped you.
Well, I was very much aware of the whole relational thing with my dog, and also with the Haraway theories in my head. But this experience of that I describe, and that came out from my diaries and the prompts from the project, the collaborative project, really struck me in its beauty and poetry and connectedness. So I actually started understanding it even deeper, more effectively, and starting to put words on this, on the way the Haraway theories mean something for me in my everyday life, not for me as an intellectual, as a scholar, but for me as a person in the moment I wake up in the morning, and the way I carry on throughout the day. And this beautiful conversation with my dog came out, the way we communicate with each other, and the way he's challenging me to get out and out in the nature, and also through his presence, the way I took in, or I still take in, the walks in the park or in the woods, and what this actually means for my life and my scholarship. So, and it's interesting how in the process I got this comment from the editors, that because I use this expression, my dog, as we say,
Yes.
he's my dog, and of course it's possession, and of course I had to add a footnote that, well, yes, he is mine as well as I am his. We are
Yes.
each other's companions, and this is very clear from the way also he communicates with us in the family.
Yeah. Oh, so that's it's very nice, sort of being kind of the presence within the relationship, rather than just he's a dog and he's here as well. It felt, yes, giving him more significance is beautiful. I think it's a him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And but he also, I mean, you concluded about talking about the role of or that section about the dog anyway, about him bringing you back to the role of spontaneous response in creative activities, that where the writing had given you a chance for reflexivity, and to try and sort of orient and to an extent kind of sit back and reflect upon the experience you were having. Your dog kind of brought you into a place where you of spontaneity and just presence.
Yes, and also that it's now, it's happening now. It's interesting also the practices that I navigate in between the writing and theater performance, where in theater and performance you need to be very responsive to what is happening, to the environment. well, we need to do the same in writing. And in writing, we think that we are more reflective, but actually what we do is being very much embodied and responsive anyway. So the two practices for me, they blend together, and this is the complexity I wanted to also share, that it's not one thing or the other, but it's more complex collage of,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, that you have to be kind of doing both. You said non-dualistically, you're in both
Yeah.
of those places, being spontaneously responding and also reflecting.
Yeah.
And you also mentioned the shift into what is not yet known brings collateral effects of fear and anxiety, which escort creative actions, no matter how wished for they are. That this step into the unknown, it does make us anxious, and this heightened sense that comes with and has to be somehow tolerated.
And this is actually what I learned
Okay.
after so many years researching on creativity and talking with creative people. I learned that the only thing that is characterizing creative people is the ability of accepting complexity and staying with the trouble, and accepting messiness, accepting that it hurts, accepting that you might lose it, and you have to start again and throw it away and keep on doing it. So that's the only, and this is not something that comes, that you're born with. So it's something that you decide in somehow to pursue and to cultivate, to
just
so
keep going.
Keep going. The decision of staying with the trouble and the actually staying with the trouble. That's the only two things that characterize creative people, as I've learned.
Very nice. And you seem to have learned that you enjoy and appreciate the poetic and the metaphor, and the opportunity to develop metaphors, as we were speaking about before with the sort of fictive metaphor, but that creating images that can open critical reflections and engage the sensory response. This is when you feel, yes, we're working now. This is happening now.
Yes, absolutely. This was the surprise that actually came out, and from this journey, and I was struck by how much I need the poetic in my work and in my life. So in my work, what I'm doing in my teaching, project management, and writing, I start very much more aware of the fact that I need the poetic, and I use it. For instance, and I've become much more unapologetic about it. This is what gives me joy, energy, and actually I can see that, I can feel that it's giving positive effects of criticality to my colleagues, my students, my family. So I'm implementing this awareness in everything I'm doing. For instance, the way I structure the dramaturgy of a meeting, a gathering in a project group. I need the poetic element. That could be visual, it could be musical, it could be words. It could be the way, in a poetic way, we start a conversation. It could be an object invited into the conversation together with us. So if one thing is, if I can point at one very positive thing that Corona taught me, is to be more unapologetic about what, the poetic. Yeah.
I think this sense that it has stripped away everything that doesn't matter and brings us back to something much more fundamental about ourselves and what gives us resilience and our creative capacities to respond and change and stay with. So thank you. And I don't want to stop, but I do want to kind of give some space for other people to come in if they would like. Andrew, I can see you've written a response. Would you like to switch on your mic, Andrew, and say it?
Well,
your comment.
I was trying to do my best to avoid that by putting a comment observation only, actually. But I was just really struck by so the ideas and the narrative structuring and just how material they were in shaping the body. That's just what was on my mind. So I thought I'd type it into the chat box and avoid having to take my mic off mute and say it out loud. And it also reminded me of that Amaya Schaefer quote about evolving into new forms. And I thought it was the word charge actually that that brought that to mind more than the evolving, because as I rolled that idea of breaking the screen around a little bit, it began to feel quite charged and energetic, rather than just a metaphor for sort of making something 3D or something of that nature. So yeah, so I guess in short, I was appreciating what Tatiana was saying. Thank you.
When you use the word charge, it makes me think about the moment of transforming of that anxious energy into something more driven and more exciting, but perhaps we need that, but it starts to develop. Jonathan,
it reminds me of, if I can share, the first moment of the first class in synchronous teaching. I mean, we had the students, I had these students that they looked so much scared. We were all so scared. They were like, is this going to fall apart? What about our education? You know, it's we only got the free days from our bosses in these days. Are we going to get through it, or what is? So we were all the charge was literally, as you say, very much negative and not negative aggressive, but fear was in everybody's eyes, and insecurity, and I think the artistic tools and objects, they turned these into a more seductive process than like a fight. But this I have to think about. I have to give some more thoughts about.
Jonathan, you've written something. Would you like to say what you've written there?
Yeah. It was scrolling back about 10 or 15 minutes in the conversation you were both having, which when you were talking about, it really hit me, Tatiana, when you talked about the collaborative writing experiences, the various ones you had keeping you sane. You used that phrase, I think. And I was wondering for you about what the significance of it being writing was. Like, could it have been, if you, I mean, and presumably you've been doing this anyway, you know, you've been meeting with friends or family and talking, and that does something, but somehow the activity of writing sounded really significant. But I wondered about what that meant to you. I think that's my question.
Yeah, it's a good question. As I said, that was really life-saving. You know, it's the two collaborative platforms were different. The CCRI collaborative writing, it was all together and more open conversations and more the witnessing writing while feeling the other body in the room. And this is something that you introduced, Jonathan, and it was really new to me, because I feel that when before that, I felt that writing was a little bit like going to the loom. You know, it's like, it's private, it's me, and I'm, you know, a little ashamed. How do I look like when I'm writing? You know, it's the same, exactly the same shyness about, you know, sitting there. How do I look when I pee? You know, and suddenly there you were with completely people that you didn't know, and it felt good. You know, just hearing the breathing, the writing, or Ryson one was writing by hand, and also what I experienced by the collaborative collage, doing the collage by yourself, and this changed my idea of writing, and writing collaboratively more into the witnessing, being together with. And so this was one of the meaningful takeaways. And the other from the micromassive was, well, we had 21 days, and I can tell you one takeaway from every day. And also the length and the commitment. We are busy, we are crazy, we are completely isolated, but we commit to these projects 21 days in a row. Here you go. And some of the prompts, they were not about writing. And this was not a surprise, but it was surprisingly connected to what I'm doing in the theater. I come from a post-dramatic theater tradition and theater anthropology, where there are several principles that can be recognized in different theater traditions. And one of it is the principle of oppositions. And I don't know if you want to try that, but if you have a piece of paper, and if you have a piece of paper and you make a paper ball, you can try that. I do my students. So and we need and you throw it. You know, try to feel it in your body how you throw it. Yeah. So how did it feel? What happened in the body?
It's a release.
Yeah. There is a release, and what something else?
It felt very playful and a bit silly.
Yeah. Yeah.
It felt very textured. The crunch, it's sensual.
Yeah. It's very embodied. See, this is also one way to break the flatness of the screen. You know, we are embodied. The principle of oppositions in the theater tradition I've been brought up with is that, you know, when you throw something, you don't go like this. No one of us did that, right? You don't go like this. You have a ball, you want to throw it there, but what you do is you start the opposite way, right? The principle. So when you want to go in one direction, you often start in the opposite direction to give it strength. And this is one of the principles of this acting tradition. When you are jumping, you know, when you jump, you don't jump up. You crunch down and jump. That's also the principle of oppositions. So being brought up with this embodied knowledge, when you have to design something, an educational program, your knowledge of oppositions and how to build strength, it's in your body. So if I want to go in one direction, sometimes I have to start in the opposite direction. Mm-hmm. So if I want to write something, sometimes it's necessary to start painting or drawing or dancing, and the opposite. So that the Micromassive confirmed and gave me a lot of tools about how important is sometimes when you want to work creatively and you need to surprise yourself and your co-writers to start in a different direction. And so this exploded in my mind in a number of exercises, toolboxes, and what else can we do? And this is the reason that I involved my poor co-writer in this writing lab, where every week we are challenging each other with one prompt of this kind of nature. It can be a reflective prompt on one's teaching experience or life experience or professional experience. It could be just a storytelling that in somehow talks to us. Or sometimes it's about making a collage or drawing or brainstorming or brainwriting or anything else.
Thank you. That's really fascinating, and of course chimes true. I think this is what we're doing. Just going to say quickly say goodbye to Jonathan, I think, who has to leave us early. The rest of us can carry on for a bit longer. So as you were saying that, it's both as a response. It also struck me as a nice kind of metaphor for what happened relationally when we all found ourselves severely curtailed in terms of the relationships that we could be present within, which, you know, suddenly prompted this, you know, this urge for connection. And of course, we're very fortunate to have this digital technology at this time of pandemic, and it's not the same as meeting, but we have been able to find these creative responses and ways to connect and feel connected and to start orienting. Mark and Janice both have written things. Can I take Janice's first and come back round? Janice, would you like to speak about what you've just written there?
Hi, yeah, sorry, I can't get my video to work. Yeah, just, you know, the very embodied approach, Tatiana. It reminds me quite a lot about Rudolf Steiner's Waldorf education approach. Is that something that you have worked with?
Not directly, but living in Denmark, the Steiner schools are very strong here, and of course we get it from more than professional reading and from culture around us. Of course, I'm aware of the Steiner philosophy, but I haven't been working with it directly. Yeah.
Gabriel, would you like to ask your
I think
question?
Mark had a question also.
Oh, yes. I thought it was sort of, well, Mark, should we take you're coming back?
I'm very happy for you to go with the flow, Melissa. So I'll come back to mine.
I thought we could come back to you and just come to Gabriel's, which is still on this topic.
Yeah, I was asking if you think there is like an opposite in art somehow, like what will be the opposite of writing or the opposite of painting, or it's just like a feeling for you that something is like different than the other one. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, the opposite could be, for instance, if I have to write a paper and it's a written task, it would be to start from an activity that is not written. So it could be starting to draw a cartography or something that I do personally. I can show you how my desk looks like, but I doodle. Like, see, there's always some paper, and I doodle. So sometimes my way of getting into a writing task is starting doodling abstract shapes until a line of story comes out. And sometimes I use the doodles to build collages, which is also a way of going away from in another direction in order to use the artistic process as a reflection for what I'm going to write. Something similar is described in the expressive arts therapy. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but the expressive arts therapy has been conceptualizing these kind of processes based on the arts. I think a lot of art therapy is going in this direction, but the tradition I know best is the expressive arts, and also the coaching application. So expressive arts coaching, arts-based coaching, it's called differently, where you use the process in order to reflect, an artistic process in order to reflect upon some problematic topics. Yeah.
Is it for you important to have like multiple art kind of skills or practices, like mixing theater with doodling, with writing? I don't know. Is it important for you that multimedia?
For me personally, yes. It's a way of not getting bored, and it's a way of cheating myself out of knowledge. You know, scholars, we are so clever. We know it all. We're so damn clever. And when you know, when you think you know everything, you really need to find strategies to push yourself in a place that is scary, because you wouldn't go there by free will. You know, why push myself in a place where it's scary and unsecure? But the artistic processes are a way of seduction So it's not a push, it's seduction into a place where you find yourself, wow, I didn't know all these. I have to find a solution, how to get out of it, or how to make sense, how to shape a form, and so forth.
Mark, maybe that leads nicely to your question about fostering engagement.
Thanks, Melissa. Yes, and thank you, Tatiana. It's been really interesting to hear you speak, and I've just been noticing over the last hour the times when I've become most engaged and animated, because of course we are, in a sense, we're dancing that process of being engaged in a way of being together, which is probably not one that many of us would choose if there were other options available. And I've really struggled as a teacher working online, and like you, I had to move very suddenly to a whole series of online teaching stuff, which was just brutal. And I have experienced a huge loss in the intimacy that takes place in teaching, and that collaborative place of being in the same physical room as each other, whether it's a group of 10 or a group of 200. And I'm interested, I suppose, if you could say a little bit more about how do you, given that, as I look at the screen now, there are 9 boxes in your top left and Melissa's top right, and Gabriel's in the middle, and we are arrayed in a fixed framework. I can't move me round so I'm next to Andrew.
Yes, you can.
Can we?
Yes, try clicking on yourself or anyone. You can put everyone wherever you want.
Oh my God, look at that.
My
can't move while people are pinned. No,
nobody's, I don't think.
Anyway, because if we were in the room together, I might just go and move. You would move around if there would be a movement, and of course we would have so much subtle awareness of each other. And the thing I've really struggled with is engaging conversation, because this conversation is a conversation led by Melissa and Tatiana, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But we are restricted, and so the mechanisms of teaching, and how big were your groups, and how did you what did you do? I want to see the show and tell bit.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good, very relevant question, because luckily I have small groups. So the ones that I'm talking about, there were 14. One was 14, the other was, I think, was 20. The students that they were at the lesson. But the problem is, the bigger problem is the master in creative learning processes. The students that are actually receiving these teaching, all of it's embodied and relational. We will start a new group on the 10th of February. And this class will be online. The other class had the first seminar of 2 days in a row, physically, we were there. We were there, they had. So we could establish this intimacy that you were talking about. It's so important in all teaching, in all human relationships, especially if you want, as a facilitator, if you want to let people in the place where they don't know what to do, how do you build trust on screen? So next, in a month, I will meet and there will be 19 adults. They don't know each other, and I'm already developing games and stuff, how to break the flatness. This is a great feature, you know, moving you around. I think I will use it. I will use it. But it's the fundamental question of, you know, using arts-based processes, arts-based in therapy, in teaching, and in education, in change processes. How do you build intimacy? And it's a very sensitive matter, because it's intimacy of bodies, and how do you build the trust that is necessary to step into the place where you don't know what you don't know? You're completely
and I guess,
in a loss.
I mean, as you were speaking, then I was thinking about the idea of vulnerability.
Yeah.
How do we not just create an opportunity where it's the risk of vulnerability is not overburdensome, it's not over threatening, because in order to develop trust, it seems to me that there's an element of exposing ourselves to some level of vulnerability, and there's a risk in that. And the sense I have, both as a participant in groups and as a teacher facilitator, is that this process of being in boxes closes down or limits the extent to which vulnerability is possible. And I mean, it is still possible. We take risks all the time in, you know, in making observations, saying something, you know, but it's something about how, I mean, your question about what, you know, who killed learning, I think destroying intimacy or destroying vulnerability or whatever is the secret to killing learning. And in a sense, part of this process, I think, is trying to wrestle with that. How do we maintain vulnerability? And I think that, I mean, Melissa, you were talking about being a therapist as well, and I think that comes in particularly into
yes, I mean, I might answer you as a therapist just to come in, because of course this is what we're doing, and at this stage I've done whole therapies with people that I've never physically met, as well as having gone through that transition with some established clients. And I think we do find intimacy, but some of the ways that we do it involve having to kind of name and talk about and orient, because we can't. I think with groups it's very difficult, and I think a group therapy is pretty much impossible, because you cannot see who's looking at who, you can't see who's withdrawing, you just can't read the room. It's not the same kind of room. But I mean, what we've found in therapy is that you have to start putting things into language sooner. You have to start talking about it. You have to start saying, oh, Mark, you've got a kind of red colored sofa. I've watered my plants this week. You can see the difference. We start kind of grounding into the visual reality, and I've found that while a lot is being lost, that push into verbalizing and the slight loss of the anxiety and the frisson of being bodies together means that I can ask more intimate questions without it feeling unsafe in the way that it might in the room if I went straight for, and how's the sex? But I can do that on the screen without it being causing kind of confusion and the same kind of like intense embarrassment. And because of the slight, the distancing that the screen gives makes me actually safer to talk to about more intimate topics. So I'm learning how to use that.
Yeah. But in creativity, and it's also something that struck me with the students' reactions to the dramatizing Who Killed Learning exercise, because they felt it safe. And as a creative exercise, It's not very optimal.
Too safe.
So it was too safe for them. And it was as if the screen was adding an extra layer to the dramaturgy, because when in theater you always step up a different level. You are the actor playing a role, but this was the students playing as if they were students playing a role. So there was a sort of extra fictive layer for them that for their participation was actually positive, because it was easier for them to get into the fiction. There was no resistance, but for the creative part, that was a too easy step into the play and not the dramaturgical.
Not embodied enough, or is it
not embodied enough, and also not risky enough?
Yeah,
because they felt it as if a double as if. It's not as if we were investigators, but it's as if we were in the classroom playing the investigators who are solving the problem. You know, we are playing, we are making as if this is a room where we are sitting together.
Yes, like because I sometimes think I don't drink on my own, but if I'm with my friends on Zoom, am I alone or not?
Yeah.
And it's not clear. Yeah, there's this sort of double bind here, that we're both together and on our own.
Yeah.
So has that been something the students can talk about? Are they expressing that in the feedback?
No, it was my observation from the easiness of their response. It's an hypothesis of interpretation that's for me something that's it's not optimal. For instance, it's not the best to play theater on screen, not even live, because it's adding this extra. We should believe that this is a theater room. We are in a theater where actors are playing characters, so there is an extra layer of make believe.
I'm almost losing
wearing two sets of gloves, and we then can't feel things as much.
Do you think that the screen, that looking at yourself all the time, also breaks kind of the spontaneity in a way, because you're hyper aware of how you look and how you
self-conscious?
Yes, you become one of the other people that you're talking to almost inevitably then. Yeah. Janice, would you like to come in here? I can see you've written.
Yeah, just to say that I have found that teaching creative writing works amazingly and surprisingly well. But maybe, you know, as you're talking and I'm thinking, it's maybe because writing is anyway a kind of lonely thing. You know, even although you're talking about collaborative writing, the actual activity is I am with myself writing. And yeah, and then Mark, you spoke about the kind of, you know, a bit of isolating feeling. But I have found that actually the breakout rooms allow people to share their writing, and actually it's better, because in class, if I had 16 students, it would be almost impossible for me at Edinburgh University to find little breakout rooms. And so I would have people turn to the person next to you, share what you've written, and actually it would be really noisy. So, I mean, I'm not waving the flag for a life on screen at all, but just to kind of put in my bit that actually for creative writing, it has worked really well.
Thanks, Janice. I think that's really good to end on, thinking about the positive possibilities of working digitally and what it can do. So I thought we might wrap up, Tatiana. If you would like to say anything more to finish. It's just been really fascinating to have you and to hear your experiences.
Great conversation. Thank you for your questions and comments. But again, I look forward to visit you in Edinburgh. Anyway,
we're just all so looking forward.
This is good. But sitting together, it's better.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah, we're really looking forward to that day. I thought we could just use the last few minutes, first of all, to kind of reorient and think what else is coming up on our radar for the CCRI community. We have there's a few things that I know about that people might be interested in, and feel free to chip in if you know any more than I do. I know that Ken Gale, who was here last month, is giving a talk tomorrow evening for as part of ANINET, the Artful Narrative Inquiry Network. So if you would like to hear Ken talk about creativity, tomorrow is Wednesday the 20th. Google Ken Gale, Google ANINET and Eventbrite, and hopefully you'll find a link. Nini Fang has a webinar coming up. I don't know anything about it except she said it's coming. I don't know if anyone else knows what Nini has planned, but that's going to, I guess, be advertised soon. And then there's the first Thursday workshop, which is at the beginning of February. I'm sorry that Jonathan has gone because he'll remember who the speaker is. Does anyone else remember who the speaker is? No, we can't remember. We haven't read our email. Oh,
not the name, but the topic is couples therapy, psychoanalysis and sociology. But I don't remember the name of the tool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I've got my ticket for ICQI, which is happening online, which in May. So that's going to be exciting. Anything else anyone wants to bring to our attention? No. Autoethnography conference will be in July as well. That's going to be advertised soon, I think. So that's what we had on our radar. I wonder if we should finish by doing something inspired by you, Tatiana, whether we should just make a shape or give a word each or something, just to kind of finish off with, to give a response. How do people feel about that? I'm just hoping that people will nod.
We can also do it all together. We can do it all together, a movement that expresses how we feel at the moment.
Okay. Shall we try? Okay, let's go. So those of you who listen later, you will never know. That was really fun. and lots of hearts going up. Thank you all so much for coming. It's been great to have our audience as well as Tatiana, and see you all on a screen soon and in person one day. Okay.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.